Friends, today's NRI Samay program from Los Angeles brought to you commercial free by listeners like you. Your generous donations make possible for us to stay commercial free, and today's show is pre-recorded. If you have a question for the guest, please send an email to nrisamay@gmail.com. We will follow up with the guest and find the answer for you. Thank you for your support.
Hello friends, welcome back to NRS Samay. Yet another week, yet another Saturday. And week after week, we try to bring in some stories, on a positive note, some good people who've been doing incredible work, and also talk about important topics. And this week's topic is about right to reject. And in a landmark step towards cleaner politics, Supreme Court today directed the Election Commission to provide a button on voting machines to allow voters to reject all candidates in a constituency, starting with the assembly elections this year. The court said that this option is very crucial as far as democracy to survive and for the best available men to be chosen for governing the country. So the court said that democracy was all about choice, and in a vibrant democracy, the voter must be given the choice of none of the above option, which is also called the NOTA option. So coming up in this year, there are elections for Delhi, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, and Mizoram, where the elections are due very soon. So they'll be the first ones to have this right to reject option. The court also decided on a petition filed by People's Union for Civil Liberties (PUCL), an NGO that was set up in 1976 when Loknayak Jaya Prakash Narayan was jailed during emergency. Samay in conversation with Dr. V Suresh, General Secretary of PUCL, People's Union for Civil Liberties, talking about right to reject and also covering upon many different topics that PUCL works relentlessly on. Listen to this excellent conversation with Dr. Suresh.
Congratulations and relentless effort from PUCL, and this is one good of a judgment. As a citizen, when I see it, I feel extremely elated when I see the news saying that right to reject has become a reality. We were all part of this Anna Hazare's movement, and we are hearing about right to reject. Of course, we were no voice when we heard it for the first time, but citizens have awakened, and when we hear about this, it's a good news. So paint a picture on what PUCL has been doing all throughout in this past 10 years. You have been putting up a fight on this. Tell us what efforts were on since the past 10 years as far as right to reject is concerned, sir.
See, PUCL is India's largest human rights body, totally voluntary, and we have been taking up the issue of voters' rights in a very consistent way for the last 20 years. We feel that the right of the citizen to vote is one of the most critical parts of democracy. But the way the Indian parliamentary democracy is functioning has become farcical, with big money, criminal interests, and people of dubious origins standing for elections. So the first part of the fight was to argue that the citizen's right to vote is meaningless unless the citizen knows about the person who's standing for election. And that was again a long fight, at the end of which PUCL PIL got a judgment which said that it is mandatory on the part of all candidates to file affidavits. So as you would know, in India today, this has become a very big tool for ordinary citizens to seek accountability from candidates, because all candidates will have to file a signed affidavit stating their wealth, the wealth of their close relatives, as also criminal cases filed against them. This is being compiled and in many places is being used to debunk or to expose corrupt politicians, as also corrupt political parties. The second part of the fight has been on the whole issue of the right to vote, and that the right to vote should also include the right candidates. The critical issue here is the issue of secrecy, that the right to vote is a right to secret ballot, and secrecy is an elementary part of casting your vote. Unfortunately, the Indian law with regard to right to vote did not envisage or cover the right to reject. So the right to reject was already provided for in the Representation of People's Act, but it was not a secret act. So much so that anybody who wanted to reject the candidates would have to make a declaration in the electoral booth. It would be registered in a specific register, and all the political party representatives will know who has decided that they will not support any candidate. Now this became a very contentious issue because anybody who wanted to file under Section 49O would be scared because they would then be targeted by the political parties.
Right.
So it is that this which led to the PUCL filing a petition in 2004 and continuously fighting since then that the right to reject the candidates should be a right based on secrecy. So that, anybody can go there and vote against any of the candidates, but he or she should not be exposed in terms of anybody knowing who it is. So it's taken us a long time and a long fight, but it is quite a satisfying end in this particular part of the electoral rights cases.
Excellent. So when I heard your pieces, let me just slice it down. And first thing is the fight that PUCL has put, and you brought up an issue of filing affidavits. That's a very big victory for democracy. And when I hear about this filing affidavits, I see people in the Lok Satta movement talking that we were also instrumental in this. What other organizations does PUCL work with, sir?
See, PUCL, like I said, is India's largest human rights body, and as a body which was founded by people like Jaya Prakash Narayan, Acharya Kripalani, and some of India's greatest freedom fighters,
right,
would work with other organizations insofar as specific issues are concerned. So Lok Satta has worked on electoral reforms. Association for Democratic Rights has been working consistently on electoral reforms. There are numerous other organizations which have been fighting for election reforms. So insofar as our interests are similar, we work with many of these other organizations. But otherwise, PUCL generally works alone in terms of the human rights mandate. On specific issues, we coordinate and we align with some of the other groups.
Excellent, excellent. Sir, one thing is for sure that your efforts are laudable, and when you're talking about this filing affidavits itself, ADR has got a ton of extraordinary data just grabbed mainly due to these affidavits that were filed by these contestants in the
ADR has been doing some amazing work. ADR has been consistently doing work. See, PUCL's main mandate is not electoral politics. PUCL's mandate is the larger issue of human rights and human rights violations, which is a huge canvas. Though we have taken this up in a big way, we have not been taking it up in a focused way the way ADR has done. But that is the arena for groups which are working on democratic rights and electoral reforms to work in.
Right. Excellent. So now coming back to this right to reject, so give us an insight. What was it earlier as far as right to reject is concerned? Because we know that there was some kind of a right to reject, like NRIs having a voting right, which is useless because they're asking NRIs to come and then physically vote there. It doesn't make any sense because you calculate all the flights existing on this planet. NRIs can't come on the day of the election and then vote for it. So it's something you feel like NRIs have been given right to vote, but they can't vote. Similarly, there was this right to reject of 49O or something, which is never communicated properly, never really took shape as it has to be. And, as you mentioned, the people have to declare that they want the register where they can sign and then do a right to reject. So now tell us, what was it earlier, and after the Supreme Court's judgment, what is it that people will be seeing right now?
See, the right to reject was there in the law. It was there in Indian law, there were provisions in the Representation of People's Act, which provided the citizen the right to reject any of the candidates if they felt none of them were good enough. Now, procedurally what would happen is that this right would be exercised in the election booth. Mm-hmm. So when she or he would go into the booth, and they will have to then tell the election officer in the booth that they wanted to exercise their power under 49O and to register not to vote. Now, the moment she or he said this, one is most often many officers would try to dissuade the person from doing it, saying, why do you want to do it? Because there's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork on the part of the election officials. Anyway, if the person still insisted that they do it, then the person would call out the name of the person who wants to do it, and they will then have to write in the register. Now, what happens typically in an election booth anywhere in India, a land of 1.2 billion people, is that in every booth there would be agents of all the main candidates would be sitting there. There will be a set of election officials who would who would administer the electoral process. Then if I was to enter into a thing, then I would give them my election number, my voters list number, and the number would be read out. So all the political parties would tick in the copy of the electoral list that they have that Suresh has voted. Likewise, if Suresh now goes into the booth and says, I don't want to vote for any of the candidate, in a similar way, it will be shouted. The electoral say Suresh is now filing application under 49O not to vote for any of them. So which means something which should be done in secrecy would be known to the entire world. So all the political party agents would be noting down that I have not. Now in the electoral list, not only my name will be there, my address will also be there. So it's extremely easy for any political party to trace out the person and to sort of intimidate, threaten. There have been cases where people have been followed back to their homes and told and demanded to know why they did that. Now this exposed anybody who wanted to exercise this right to reject to a lot of intimidation and threat. And people cowered down under the possibility of violence. So they would not even want to go and register their right to reject. Now the Supreme Court has said out of the 40 buttons that is there in any electoral EVM, electoral voting machine, there should be one button which should say not to vote. Like every other button which should be there for individual candidates. So now any person can walk into the booth and with nobody knowing about it, barring the fact that they would know that that person has come into the booth, so all the political party representatives will tick it. She or he can go into the booth, press the button which says I don't want to select any of these people. It gets registered. So the secrecy we hope and we are sure will encourage a lot more people to exercise their opinion in case they find that candidates are not suitable. This is a great advancement. Like many other things keep changing. Now you are talking about NRIs not being able to come to India. I don't think it is going to take too long before we have votes on the internet, and that NRIs could be internet. Contrasted to even 3 years back when postal votes itself was a hugely challenging affair in India. But the technology is catching up, and hopefully very soon we will have a much more secure and a much more easier to administer election system.
Right.
I'm sure it is going to come very soon.
Right. And some meaningful suggestions were there as well as far as absentee voting rights are concerned, wherein people will download the ballot paper, they will fill it, and then they'll send it by post. But then still there was a little bit of an adamancy in not agreeing to that. Of course, there are logistical issues, and people say that there might be some MP who can just flood in money to the NRI saying that I'll give you $1,000 per vote, and he'll capture all those votes, and then he would basically ship them from various locations. So there are people who are debating on this, and the debate will never end. You talk something, the government will come up with some other issue.
See, let us also not forget now, it's not just the government and the political parties. Today we are living in a society where the broader ethical standard of the common citizenry has also degenerated.
Right.
Let us not put all the blame only on politicians and other people. Educated people are the biggest betrayers of India's development.
Very true.
And the educated and the professional classes are the ones who don't go to vote, who will crib sitting in their houses in the comfort of their bed, of their drawing rooms. Right. Educated people are the one who will bribe their way to get whatever they want, and who are not bothered about how things go on. It's in fact the poorer people who are keeping democracy alive. Let's not forget it is the ordinary person, the ordinary unknown, faceless, nameless Indian who threw out the dictatorial Indira Gandhi during emergency.
Right.
The PUCL was formed during the emergency. It was formed out of Tihar jail, where Jaya Prakash Narayan was arrested and kept inside. So it has happened time and again. A very corrupt Jaya regime was thrown out earlier parts. The DMK regime was thrown out in 2011 in Tamil Nadu. So there have been the Shining India campaign of BJP was exposed and they were thrown out in 2004. So it's the ordinary citizen who has felt betrayed by the ruling groups who has exercised their ballot in a very effective way.
Very true.
So when we are talking about this, so we should also keep in mind that there is a complete corruption of ethical conduct and ethical standards.
Right.
Amongst the educated, opinion-making, intelligentsia and elite in the country.
Very
that
true.
has to be addressed.
Yes, and also, sir, in the changed world, I don't know what made this whole lot of difference. Anna's movement, there may be other social movements that are going all around, but the fundamental change when for Delhi gang rape issue, the elite crowd and also people who were sitting in the drawing rooms came out into the open, and the Jan Lokpal movement, people were fighting. Things are changing. And on the other side, RTI not coming under, political parties not under RTI, bringing up these ordinances, that anger level is increasing. And one side of it, people are awakened, they're trying to, recently there was a campaign wherein when political parties are not coming under RTI, NRIs and a bunch of people back in India as well, the elite crowd, they called each and every MP in the parliament begging them to defer this move. So I'm as you mentioned, the anger towards and apathy towards and cynicism towards government should reduce, and also government should really understand that there are citizens that are awakened. There's some gap that needs to be filled. You're very right. You're talking cynical about governance, and also people also should change. I'm seeing that we might hit a midpoint very soon, wherein the government understands what people are talking about, and people will definitely pitch in and then also think about this voting, which is very critical for people.
No, but talking about all these middle class and upper class movements, see, we have to remember that many of the people who came out on the streets have a very, very superficial understanding of social processes and political processes. Many of these people do not understand the caste and the community context of local dynamics and local politics.
Right.
So they feel that merely because they are coming out to demand accountability is going to come.
Right.
Because they themselves are the ones who are the most unaccountable of all people. You see, so one finds it very difficult to be cynical about many of the recent social movements. So while one welcomes and one is happy that more people are feeling to come out and take a stand, consistency and a very informed participation in democracy is extremely important.
Right.
All those hundreds of people who came in Anna Hazare's movement and other movements, we don't know where they have vanished.
Right.
So, and many of these people are also very righteous about the fact that their demand is that they should be heard because they are different.
Right.
Now, that's hardly a position. 30 years I've been in political work. That's hardly a difference. There are hundreds of people who are fighting millions of daily mutinies,
Right.
challenging the completely rapacious development model in the country.
Right.
Who do not want to get into page 3 or page 5, who are not wanting to be into internet and to Twitter, but they fight because the fight is for democracy and for India. Now that sense of humility is unfortunately missing in a large section of the people who came out to express their voices. One hopes that they will continue to come out, continue to express, because ultimately democracy is hanging on a very slender string, and it can be cut any time.
Very true.
But one hopes, one keeps hoping, one keeps pushing, one is optimistic,
That's all,
and one keeps on engaging all these people.
So, sir, coming back to this conversation of right to reject, I know that PUCL has put in a PIL about this right to reject, but we are hearing some stories, while a chunk of people are extremely happy that this is a first step towards a good legislation. The other side of the people are saying that there will be less impact of this right to reject, as in when they talk about this provision of these rejected votes not being counted, and this will not impact the result of an election. Can you throw some light on what is that PUCL has asked for, and what is that PUCL finally got to know that what has been given by the Supreme Court? Can you?
When we went to the Supreme Court, we said the provision was already there for the citizen to reject a candidate, which was not being recognized because the right to secrecy of this particular act of rejecting any of the candidates was not recognized. That has now been acknowledged and has now been, the Supreme Court has said, becomes the law of the land. Now, this is one positive step forward in the way we look at it, but we do not think that this is the end of the road. This is just the beginning of a long journey to make electoral democracy much more meaningful. So we will have to follow this up with the nationwide debate. For example, theoretically, if 50% of people reject candidates in a particular constituency, what happens? Especially because we have now a system where the first candidate who gets the majority vote out of all the candidates wins. Now, theoretically, out of 100 votes, 51 votes say we don't want any of them. But out of the remaining 49 votes, there's somebody who gets 24 and he comes first. Would that person still be declared to be a winner? What do you happen if 100% people vote against any of the candidates? Then what happens? Now, these are, I think, issues which will have to be ironed out now that the basic right has been acknowledged.
Right.
It's going to take some time for it to work out, to roll out. There are creases and there are going to be difficulties that one did not conceive of earlier. But I would see these things as a work in progress.
Right. Very true.
We'll have to address it as things come, as things get by.
Right. Right. So from the PUCL side, you said that not always you get into this domain of electoral reforms and other things, but what other activities does PUCL do? Because definitely as a layman, I understood the work of PUCL, which I was a novice in not even understanding what PUCL has been doing for years. So what are the other aspects that PUCL is working as far as electoral reforms are concerned, sir?
See, let me first also tell for the benefit of your listeners, in this case, ADR has also been actively involved. A number of other groups have been involved apart from PUCL. So this victory is a victory for all people, for many groups and people who believe in electoral democracy and accountability. So it's not just PUCL's victory alone. It's a victory of the people of India and many groups like ADR and Loknayak and other groups also. I think that is very important to acknowledge that this has been a joint effort. That is one. The second thing is PUCL has been involved in a whole lot of other work related to securing people's human rights. These range from working on issues of environmental rights, ecological rights, going down to economic and social cultural rights. For example, the right to food security arose from PUCL PIL filed in 2001 in the Supreme Court at the time of starvation deaths in Rajasthan when the FCI godowns were full to the brim, but yet people were dying. So the right to food security law that came about a month back owes itself to the PUCL PIL that was filed in 2001 by the Secretary of the PUCL Rajasthan unit. Likewise, PUCL has filed cases on custodial deaths against the violence inflicted in some of the troubled areas like the Northeast or in Kashmir. So PUCL has been working on a series of issues spanning from civil and custodial violations to the entire range, including political, civil, cultural, economic, social rights.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So I also have one other question, sir. Does PUCL have some kind of an NRI body where you work in consultations with people here as well? Are NRIs inclusive in these efforts as well? So do you work with organizations which help in these electoral reforms and other aspects of what PUCL does?
See, we had never faced a request from anybody from the NRI community wanting to be part of PUCL. See, PUCL is a very open body. Anybody, irrespective of their political belief or in economic systems, is permitted to be a member of the PUCL. Because we basically believe that an enlightened human rights community is the best safeguard against dictatorship. So we have never really thought of opening NRI chapters. We will have to think about the possibilities of doing it because PUCL is a non-funded body and we take our being non-partisan very seriously. So we don't have funds to start out many other things. We may consider it if there are any requests that are coming in from the NRI community. But at the moment, we don't have any NRI branches.
Alright.
Having said that, I would also say that on issues of human rights concerns, PUCL on a very selective basis has been working with very many other organizations in India on an issue-by-issue basis. So if there are requests from NRI bodies that they would like to associate with PUCL and PUCL's activities, they could write to us and we could consider it and we could get back. Now, we in the PUCL look at joint activities at different levels, from joint campaigns to associating ourselves in meetings and sharing experiences. So there's a whole range of possibilities that exist, which would be, I mean, it's very difficult to say now at the hypothetical level, which we would be open to consider if the situation comes about.
All right. So I have a curious question to ask. So you have seen this Anna Hazare's movement as well. So my last question to you, sir, is you have seen this Anna Hazare's movement and a whole lot of people coming onto the streets. So on a personal note, what is your opinion on how best it has helped things roll really fast, sir?
So see, Anna Hazare movement was very useful, very important historically, because it came at a time in which it triggered off latent anger amongst ordinary citizens against the larger political system which people had seen are seeing to be extremely depraved and very corrupt. So I think it was very useful in being able to direct people's energies towards mass movements. It made many people realize the importance of working together in a collective way. So I think these are all very many positive things about the Anna Hazare movement in terms of raising the political consciousness and awareness of large sections of the people who otherwise would not have bothered to come out and make their voices heard. That is the most positive benefit that I see of Anna Hazare and related movements in the last 3 to 4 years.
All right. Perfect. Sir, Dr. Suresh, I really appreciate all your time and extraordinary work from PUCL. I'm sure from our platform, we take this to the people, broader NRI community, about the efforts of PUCL, and it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you very much, Dr. Suresh.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So friends, that's about right to reject. The inclusion of not a button will definitely ensure participation of voters who are frustrated with all the candidates in an election. So the Supreme Court has rightly pointed out that NOTA, the none of the above option, will accelerate the effective political participation in the present state if democratic system and the voter will in fact be empowered. So the Supreme Court also points out that this will prevent bogus voting, as the Apex Court points out that the political parties will realize that when a large number of people express their disapproval through the none of the above option, the NOTA option, there will gradually be systematic change and the political parties will be forced to accept the will of the people and field candidates who are known for their integrity. So once again, thank you very much for tuning in today. This is NRSMI. If you have any questions, please do write to nrsmi@gmail.com. You can also like us on Facebook, facebook.com/NRSMI. Twitter, twitter.com/NRSMI. You can listen to all our archives on youtube.com/NRSMI. Thank you very much, friends. Have a wonderful weekend.
Friends, if you liked today's show, please go to youtube.com/NRI Samay and click on the subscribe button. You will get notified every time we publish a new show. And you can also like us on our social media sites like Facebook, Twitter, and Google+.